This is Musical Shenanigans, the podcast. Head-to-head Mortal Kombat, where randomly chosen albums from the 2020 Rolling Stone Top 500 claw and fight their way to victory. Hand-crushing action, monster albums, jousting, Greco-Roman candle-burning nitro funny cars, and wait, what the hell is this about? Gravedigger? Pulling trucks? Why can't we just call AAA and get a tow? What the fuck is all this? Hello everyone, I'm Johnny Cash.
and I'm Milton Berle.
You weren't ready for that, were you?
No.
Hey all, I'm Johnny Cash.
And I'm Pete Davidson.
And I am not Chevy Chase.
Welcome to the next installment of Musical Shenanigans.
Indeed. Praise Satan.
Praise Satan.
Praise Satan. All right, let's get right to it. One correction from last show. I have this problem of referring to the guitar player of Black Sabbath as Tommy Iommi. It's Tony. I've got a synaptic misfire somewhere.
Wait, what? Did we talk about Black Sabbath last time?
Why? When did we talk about I don't remember it coming up.
What, Dr. John lost a finger? And I said, why couldn't he get the whole Tony Iommi bit put on to the end of it so he could continue to play guitar?
That. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, see, I'm the one that edits and has to listen to this shit over and over again. So at some point I go, God damn it, that's not his name. So to Tony, I know you're listening. Which you're not. I apologize.
He does. He totally does.
All right, so the matchups this week in round one is Nas, Illmatic, up against Sparks, Kimono My House. In round two will be Johnny Cash at Fulsom Prison against Allman Brothers at Filmore East. And we played the game of life to determine who was going to go first. And Scott has decided to be the sandwich this week, which means he will start us and he will end us.
I'm doing it again.
Yes.
Oops, I did it again, in the words of Britney Spears.
So whenever you're ready, you will be defending Sparks and I will be defending Nas.
Yes.
And Dave,
how dare you take my line out of your mouth?
Say
what line?
Whenever you're ready, Scott. Feel free to proceed talking about Sparks.
It's my turn. It's my turn to say shit.
Yeah, but he's supposed to tell you when
But
to
I'm
go.
the judge,
he's
so
the judge.
Right.
I'm hitting the bell before the boxing round here. So
he's raining on your parade.
I'm like the bailiff trying to run the courtroom and getting slapped.
He's pouring water out your asshole.
You're like a lawyer trying to run the courtroom. You're representing one of these albums.
He's giving you the enema. Okay. All right. Are we ready?
Scott, please proceed whenever you are ready.
That's what she said. Okay.
Sometimes
I don't know whether this is part of the argument or if he's just having a stroke.
Would you like me to put some intro music on for your for your bit? I can do that. You don't have to provide it yourself.
Let's get ready to mumble.
They didn't make Alex Trebek sing the fucking song in Final Jeopardy, so we can put something on for you.
Okay, all right, here we go.
I just bumped my head into the microphone, by the way, so apologies for that noise when you go to edit this.
Keep that bump in the microphone, because that's Dave bumping his head. Anyway, Sparks. Okay, here we go. God damn it.
All right. Time for drastic measures.
All right. Okay, ready? Here we go. Check out this French anus. It's exploded spelliarmus, and it glows, exploding with cool waters. He's too close to the national borders. Pancakes, oh, Mr. Wonderful, save me from the fish. Wah, oh, Mr. Wonderful, I wish I was your bitch. I wish I was your bitch. Licking the bathtub after my drink. Fucking the chicken under the sink. Love is the water that was forbidden to be smelled. Come be the last ones to buy shoes. Oh, Mr. Wonderful, you've got that dick on backwards. It's a wah-wah. Ooh, Mr. Wonderful, you pimped the coleslaw blues. Foodle-lee-foo-foo. Fried farts all the obsession, the comet of the brain. Make my tuna talk like Tammy Wynette and drain the milkman's vein. Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay, and I rest.
I had to mute myself and turn off my camera.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I always big up my screen so I can't see you guys because fuck.
Okay, so just as a reminder, we were talking about Sparks this week.
Yep. That was Sparks. That was Kimono My House. Yeah.
I cannot define what the Brothers Mail have created. Their style is their style.
Yeah,
and it changes frequently.
Yeah, they never really locked into one style.
No. And they've got 25 albums under their collective belts.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Now, of course, what I found funny is the first song, "This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us." When asked about it, because Russell, the one singing it, has to do that high falsetto and sing all these words all jumbled together. When they asked Ron about it, he goes, well, he had no regard for how it would be sung and said, "Song was written in A, and by God, it'll be sung in A. I just feel that if you're coming up with most of the music, then you have an idea of where it's going to go, and no singer is going to get in my way." Of course, the singer's his brother.
See, I appreciate that.
So we may have to take a step back here for people who don't know who Sparks are, because frankly, most people in the United States especially don't know who Sparks are. Even though they were two brothers from California, they never really took off here. Huge in England. They went over to England, made several albums in England, including this one. This was really sort of their big breakthrough. They played Top of the Pops. I think I remember hearing 15 million people watch it. They had screaming fans. I mean, they were basically the Beatles in England for a while, and yet they never really took off over here. So it's these brothers, Ron and Russell Mail. Ron was a keyboard player. Used to come out on stage wearing like shirt and tie, hair slicked back, and what you can only describe as a Hitler mustache, and he'd have this like stern, confused look on his face. Meanwhile, his brother's doing this high falsetto, doing all the vocals, but doing sort of like this glam rock thing.
Vocal acrobatics, more like it.
Absolutely. I think honestly, you said you don't really know what style to pin them down, and they were their own genre. They are their own genre.
They are.
The best description I read actually when I was prepping for this was someone referred to them as the mothers of invention meet the monkeys. Like that.
Yeah, in a way, they were like one of the heavy or the earliest precursors to new wave.
Yep.
They were doing the electronic music. I mean, if we look at a lot of the electronic music that was driven by keyboards, like Depeche Mode and whatnot,
Kraftwerk.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was basically Sparks and Devo that were the pioneers.
And generally speaking, somebody also had a quote. If you haven't seen it, if you really want sort of an intro to Sparks, there's a great documentary that's out on Netflix right now called The Sparks Brothers. Even though their name actually isn't Sparks, it's called The Sparks Brothers. Kind of gives you the whole history of them. And at one point, somebody makes the comment that basically everything that's ever happened in pop music is arguably just reprogrammed Sparks. Because they were doing synth pop before it existed. They were doing glam rock kind of before it existed. I mean, it was just...
no, glam was going on at the same time.
I don't know.
That's a hard argument.
I mean, bear in mind this album, Kimono My House, this was their 5th studio album, though.
True. Thought it was
so
third.
They were making records, even though this came out in, 75, I want to say, 76? They were making records before that.
This album came out in 74.
74.
4.
And... another band that was a huge fan of them, Faith No More.
Yeah.
Now, are you familiar with their little side band, Mr. Bungle?
Yes, I
Yes.
actually am.
I always thought Mr. Bungle's biggest influence was Zappa, and I was grossly mistaken. It is clearly Sparks. There is a cover of Faith No More doing This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us online.
Nice.
And right there and then, I see where Mike Patton, singing like Russell, where he took that in with Mr. Bungle. I was like, oh my God, there's the straight line right there.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if listen to Existential Blues by them, their cover is absolutely brilliant.
I have to check that out. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one, but
Yes, the old Existential Blues by Tom T-Bone Stankus. And if you don't know the song, you should. Puppies!
Well, a lot of people don't know who Mr. Bungle is, which is a shame, too.
yeah, I only knew about him because I had a roommate in college that was really into them. And there's like right around the time that Faith No More had that big, what was it, Epic was the big single they had.
Yeah.
That was the album, too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was epic, yeah.
But I mean, but bringing this back around to Sparks, yeah, they were big influence on Faith No More, big influence on the sort of sister act of Mr. Bungle. But when you talk about not being able to pin them into a genre, the best way you can illustrate that is when you look at the actual musicians who say, we were influenced by Sparks. So you mentioned Faith No More, the Ramones, Franz Ferdinand, Kurt Cobain, Arcade Fire, Depeche Mode, Bjork, the Pixies, They Might Be Giants, Paul McCartney. In the video for Coming Up in the early 80s, actually, he plays all the different instruments in the video, and so they use those sort of like camera tricks so that he's like playing like 10 different characters. The keyboard player, he's dressed up as Ron Mayle from Sparks.
And he sings in that falsetto. Coming up.
Yep. Morrissey was such a big... Morrissey swears that if it was not for this album, he wouldn't have gotten into music. Now, you can decide for yourself whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but...
Damn shame.
But Morrissey was... I'm not so big on Morrissey. I was a big Smiths fan in high school.
Of course you were.
but Morrissey actually arranged for them to do this series of concerts in England, where they did on 25 consecutive nights. They played every single album they'd ever recorded.
Holy shit!
So like one night was album 1, one night was album 2. This wasn't like a greatest hits concert. They had to learn and practice and get ready to recreate all of those albums on stage successively in a row. Morrissey put that whole thing together. Sparks turned around a few years later and repaid the favor by writing a song called Lighten Up Morrissey.
Yeah, if they are anything, they are hysterical.
Yeah,
they are
great
just
sense of humor.
Yeah,
Great
they are
sense
just
of humor.
yes. And I'm going to point back to Laura Nero at this time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I'm like she didn't really connect with me, but she connected with a lot of other artists that I admire and tremendously respect. So I have to acknowledge what she did for them and what Sparks has done for all of these other artists.
Exactly.
Because
Absolutely.
when I first played this album, I was like, what in God's name is this?
Yeah, exactly.
I think what I actually respect the most about these guys is, number one, they just refuse to bend to anybody. Like
the tenacity.
They were making what they wanted to do. They're still making what they want to do, and frankly, they don't give a shit whether it sells or not. To the point where at one point they had just gotten back from England, where they'd sold millions of records and had these tours, and they were back in California living off of food stamps because they had no income still coming in. And also this constant reinvention. You know, it's what artists tend to do is you make an album, it hits big, and you start trying to repeat that formula over and over again. Not these guys. They were like, even when they were, their fame kind of waxed and waned over the years, and even when they were at a high point, they're like, nah, fuck it, we got to do something different. I don't want to do the same thing over and over again.
Yes, and over 25 albums, which I figure with the Amazon Music, I'm going to check them out. At first, it wasn't something that really appealed, but given I did watch the documentary, now I'm like, okay, I'm going to give them a chance. If everybody else out there is ranting and raving about them, then there's got to be something in there to at least hear it once.
Your best exposure to Sparks may be actually to just search the band name on your favorite streaming platform and put it on shuffle so that you get sort of a sonic array of samples of different things they've done over the years.
The whole smorgasbord sort of thing.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Anything else?
Unless you want me to sing that again.
No, thank you.
All right. Whatever, man. Fine.
I mean, I'm gonna hear it again later.
You're so judgy.
No, only because I'm gonna be hearing it again.
I can't imagine how many times you get to hear me do that. It's brilliant.
All right, so
I honestly, I'm just depressed I don't get to hear your take on Illmatic coming up, because your tribute to Sparks was so spot on. I would love to hear what you did with Nas.
Wait do you see what I did with Johnny?
All right, can't wait.
Oh boy.
All right, so Cory, you are up. If you would like to begin talking about Nas Illmatic anytime you are.
Yes, I would. Nas, also known as real name Nasir bin Oludara Jones, grew up in Queensbridge and was influenced into hip-hop by his neighbor Willie Will Graham. He has been, and is in most cases, considered the second coming. No, he's not the Messiah. He's a very nasty Nas. And he was considered the second Rakim in rap. So I dove through these numerous top rapper lists. Nas is always in the top 10, with Rakim either a spot below or above him. The lowest ranking I found was 6, and in most of these lists, he's number 1. And in those lists too, the most common names you will find in there with those two are the Notorious B.I.G., Jay-Z, KRS-One, Andre 3000, and Eminem. And if you think I'm playing a bit here by not mentioning Kanye, you're quite wrong. The highest number I actually found for Kanye was on Ranker.com, where he was number 12. But on Ranker.com, they don't even have Rakim. So you know what, Ranker? I don't count you. Coming back to this album, Illmatic, and reading deeper about Nas himself. In all of these lists, there are 3 key elements that they will constantly mention concerning Nas, which these 3 key elements, I think, pretty much depict this album, Illmatic. Number 1, he's known for his lyrics. He's a fucking poet. His imagery is so gritty in his descriptions, you can almost taste the crack, feel the crime, and actually feel the rage of the dirty cops, which each perfectly balance syllable, meter, and rhyme. Number 2, his storytelling. Not only can he brilliantly string and tie words together with modern-day Shakespearean precision, he walks you through the New York ghettos like Virgil leading Dante through hell in tremendous detail and depth. And number 3, his entire body of work. Not only is his discography outstanding, but after 20 years, his work is still relevant and inspiring rappers of each iterative generation. And many rappers that came up at the same time of him, there's very few of them left that are still relevant and still performing, minus, the past Super Bowl. And very much, and most importantly, he's an Everton fan, and I yield.
All right. You mentioned the storytelling. There were 2 great quotes that I found when I was sort of prepping for this. One person referred to Nas as, quote, the hip-hop Hemingway, in the sense of it's almost like each line is a short story that connects back into a larger narrative. Pitchfork magazine, the other great quote they had was, if Rakim was Woody Guthrie, Nas was Dylan, where he takes these old fables and retwists them with sort of a contemporary spin, sticking to sort of this halfway point between tradition and breaking up orthodoxy. And it's just, I have to agree. This whole thing just blew me away, honestly.
It was incredible. I actually read through all the lyrics, pulled it up, and you could see the meter, the rhyme, and the imagery and the storytelling.
Yeah, I had the live.
Absolutely
I had like
fantastic.
The live. So I did the same. I had like the live lyrics scrolling by as I was listening to the album. It's just absolutely this kid's mastery, and 19 fucking years old at the time. That's the real amazing part.
I had to actually go out and buy some crack.
This wasn't like a period piece or a piece that you actually had to listen to and get in the mood for. It's not like Piper where you needed to drop acid for.
That's true. But
or Dr. John.
I still wanted to do the crack.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
It's not. It's not, and yet in sort of a different sense it is, because it really kind of captures a very specific moment in time of like the crack epidemic sweeping through low income neighborhoods and projects in New York.
It's a real snapshot.
Nas was in Queensbridge, which is the biggest housing project in the country, I believe. One interesting thing that I read about Queensbridge, there's a lot of bad parts of Queens, especially at this point in time. There were a lot of bad parts of Queens. But interesting thing about Queensbridge was a little bit different because it was the one part of Queens where you could see Manhattan. So these guys got up and living in this, rundown, drug-infested, high-crime state every day, and all they had to do was look across the river at all the, high-end folks living across the river in Manhattan that had life so much better than they did.
Kind of Eon Fluxy there.
Yeah. But it was the storytelling, it was the word choice. The other thing that really impressed me was the musical choices, because the samples on this, there's so much. This is not the first time we've heard sort of jazz heavy hip hop, but I don't recall a situation where I could point to it and say it's been done this well either.
His father's
a jazz trumpet player,
right?
Actually plays on one of the tracks.
Cornet.
Oh, was it cornet? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So and actually plays on one of these tracks.
Yes. Phenomenal all around.
Yeah. Just absolutely amazing. Huge impact of this album too. Somebody pointed out that in '94 we hadn't hit the point where rap was a multi-generational genre yet, but this was the first album where people picked it up and said, "Okay, when I have kids, I'm making them sit down and listen to this." And in that sense, somebody said it's kind of like as Sgt. Pepper's was to the baby boomers or London Calling was to the punk generation. This was that for the hip hop generation.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, just absolutely amazing.
No, Scott, you got anything else?
I have nothing.
Okay.
All right. Well, in that case, I will deliberate and come back with my verdict.
Render the verdict unto them.
Are you ready to shenanigan? Dude, is that even a thing? The Musical Shenanigans podcast, where all that glitters are only the refused dollar bills from the stripper I recognized at Trader Joe's. We know and appreciate that Musical Shenanigans is your 11th favorite podcast, but please take a moment to subscribe and be sure to never miss out on the action. Check us out and follow us on Twitter at @M_shenanigan. Don't forget to change your undies and call your mom to get mine back from her. And now back to the show.
All right, so we're back. All right, this is such an apples versus oranges matchup, so it was a little bit hard to know where to start, honestly. I understand not everybody gets Sparks. A lot of record companies didn't get them either, and in fact, that was kind of their intent. They reminded me a little bit like Devo or early Talking Heads, where challenging the audience was actually part of the act. On the other hand, Illmatic, my God, everything works in this album. Everything works in this album. The beats, the samples, the lyrics, the storytelling. I'm not a hip hop guy, but damn, was this good. And as I said, from a kid who was 19 years old at the time, I mean, get the fuck out of here. There's part of me that says I want to rule for Sparks just because I think they've been underappreciated. And I do think they are kind of deserving of a little recognition at this point. But that's not the lens we're looking at here. This is album versus album. And when you look through that lens, this is a no-brainer. You got to go with Illmatic.
Absolutely.
Well done.
And we are in agreement with Rolling Stone. Sparks came in at number 476.
Wow.
And Nas was at number 44.
Right on.
Wow.
Yeah, good.
It was well placed. It was well placed.
Yeah, I had kind of hard to argue with either of those, honestly.
I would agree.
Hello again, this is Cory.
And this is Dave.
And this is Scott, praise Satan.
Scott, this isn't an opening for a show, dude.
Dude, I'll praise Satan whenever I fucking like.
Okay.
So look, we just want to take a minute and say that whole horoscope thing that we did last time, it was in jest. Apparently we got some complaints that a couple of people took it seriously. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, look, folks, we may not be experts in music, but when it comes to celestial connect the dots, also known as astrology, our knowledge would loosely fit within a thimble. And here's the thing, folks. We like you. Yep, even you. And we want what is best for you.
Yeah, so look, we just want to take a moment for a quick sort of public service announcement, if you will, to talk about the erroneousness of astrology, an art, if you want to call it like that. That is not even remotely accepted by the scientific community.
There are many people that make decisions based upon the motion of planets and stars in the sky. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Satan approves of such foolery.
Yeah, but for example, we did suggest that the Virgos bet it all on the Jets.
Mets.
Yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. But and by the way, like that shit is on you if that ever comes back to haunt us. The point is, we're making jokes, especially when it involves the Jets or the Mets, whichever. But honestly, that should have been the first cue that we were full of shit. I mean, moreover, this podcast is sort of what we might call in the deep red. And by the Steve Dallas first rule of law, you never ever sue poor people. So remember that.
Moreover, the motion of the stars and the planets have nothing to do with us in any way. The stars in the sky, minus that big yellow fucker that comes up every day, are billions, if not trillions of miles away. And the planets that we actually see, they revolve around the sun, not around the earth. When someone says that their lives are in peril or in the shitter because of a planet that's in retrograde, first of all, that planet doesn't give a fuck about you.
And the retrograde motion is only because the other planet is either going around the sun faster or slower than the Earth is. So in the night sky, a planet seems to stop its motion like it suddenly thought it left the stove on, and then appears to travel backwards in a loop, and then gets further ahead or further behind its orbit, because it is not, much like the universe, revolving around you or any of us. We can thank fucking know-it-all Aristotle for saying that everything revolved around us and it was heresy to claim otherwise. So this, and yes, I am using air quotes, retrograde motion is thanks to Ptolemy not wanting to be burnt alive when trying to explain
Okay, all right.
these...
Well, look, that's enough of the history here. Look, you geek out too much and we're going to lose even more listeners than we already do. But folks, one last thing. The night sky has changed over the millennia. I mean, people born thousands of years ago in the same month don't actually have the same sign as you.
Is that the Gregorian or Julian calendar?
Jesus, don't start that shit again. Look, as I was saying, people born thousands of years ago looked at a different night sky. For instance, Polaris was not always, nor will it always be the North Star. 3,000 years ago, the North Star was Thuban, also known as Alpha Draconis, and in 13,000 years from now, the North Star is going to be the star Vega. I mean, this just further proves that all of this is just total bullshit.
I mean, and besides, there's going to be the issue of like celestial navigation in the future and how fucked up that will become as all the stars shift.
Fucked up for who?
You know, sailors, merchant marines, fishermen, and other such mariners.
Dude, there's this thing called GPS.
Yeah, hell, even detailed maps for that matter. What century are you living in?
It sounds like he has that deep-rooted interest in seamen.
In any case, we want to stress that we have told you, but everything we have told you is absolutely 100% undeniably and indubitably true.
False.
False. Yeah, false.
The universe does not give a fuck about you, me, or anyone with any kind of sexually transmitted disease. It's like these idiots that fucking do whatever Kanye tells them to do or wear. Speaking of Kanye...
Hey, it's the Kanye report!
Whoa. God damn it, hold on. I don't even have the music ready.
Donda 2, only available on Kanye's $200 STEM device. The streaming music ecosystem is a pretty lousy place for artists. Services like Spotify pay roughly a half a cent for every stream, and even less of that ultimately goes into the pocket of the actual artist. Kanye has a solution, giving Kanye $200. His upcoming album, Donda 2, will only be available on his own $200 STEM player, and it won't stream on Apple Music, Spotify, or other services.
So can I call the little thing the Donda box? Can I just
that's
further
a good
this
idea.
whole Oedipus joke?
I like that, the Donda box. He wants you to put
woman
your
is
music
dead.
in his Donda box.
Yes.
There's something necrophiliac about that.
That guy's always out to fucking scam money from people.
Or fuck his mom.
Donda box is currently sitting about 6 feet under. Okay, so look. Also, recently, back on Valentine's Day, there was an Instagram account that called Hip Hop by the Numbers that posted a list of people that Kanye has had a beef with over the years. Now, of course, the list included Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson, but there was a long list of other folks, too. Taylor Swift, Nike, his cousin, Wiz Khalifa, Jay-Z, Kid Cudi, Billie Eilish, Peppa Pig, Drake, Ray J, Justin Timberlake, Jimmy Kimmel, South Park, Deadmau5, Beyonce, Bruno Mars, J. Cole, Travis Scott, Harriet Tubman. Who the
Harriet
fuck has a beef
Tubman?
who the hell knows? Louis Vuitton, the CEO of Zappos, Evil Knievel. Also, Dennis Haysbert, Amber Rose, MTV, Beck, George Bush Jr., which I guess means W. I don't actually know about George Bush Jr. There was something called ADL. I'm assuming that's the Anti-Defamation League. I don't know. TMZ, the American Music Awards, 50 Cent, and Kris Jenner.
Oh my God, what? He just got a beef with just the rest of the world that just doesn't agree with him?
Yeah, apparently. Well, they also asked people to chime in if there was anybody that the list had left off. So Kanye, much to everybody's surprise, retweeted, or not retweeted, but reposted and added his own suggestions.
Yeah, so actually, he decided that wait, there's more. So he now includes Apple, Spotify, Vivendi, Universal, Skeet, which is what he's now calling Pete Davidson, which, Skeet and Yee sounds like an upcoming Nickelodeon cartoon this fall, Lucian Grange, whoever the fuck that is, TikTok. He's got a beef with Black History Month, Obama, the entire cast of SNL, Hillary Clinton, the devil himself, Cory Gamble. Since Kanye didn't use any punctuation, it's unclear whether he was calling Cory Gamble the devil or the devil himself. And Cory Gamble were meant to be two separate entities. Because, this whole religious thing, it could just be Satan separately.
Praise Satan.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos, Charlemagne, Disney.
And in round 2, facing off in the green trunks with his cock hanging out 30 miles long.
Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate that. Don't know how you knew that, but my God.
All right, and here we are in round 2 with 2 live albums going up against each other. This is
God, I thought you almost said 2 live crew.
No. Why would I say 2 live crew?
I don't know why I don't know why anyone here would say many of the things we say sometimes.
Yes. I would agree with
that. Yeah. Check that will you?
Yeah.
Well,
you mean him and the cat. Sucking his thumb on his ear or whatever the fuck he's doing.
Dude, she's got issues. I don't know.
We've all had a pussy suck our fingers from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
This is true.
Yep.
This is true. Well, I'm not going first this time. So
That's
whatever.
right. Today, Scott is opening and closing and being the sandwich. I think we've covered this, so I don't know why I'm repeating myself. But here we are in round 2. And Dave will be starting with Allman Brothers at Filmore East. So, and I get to say it, whenever you're ready, Dave, please proceed.
All right, thank you. So, Yiddish theater is exactly what it sounds like. They are plays primarily written and performed in the Yiddish language. 105 2nd Avenue in New York was originally built as a Yiddish theater back in 1925 called the Commodore, but it didn't last. Once film began to rise in popularity, it became the Loew's Commodore. Bill Graham took over the place 5 years after the last showing, 1963's A Ticklish Affair, starring Mrs. Partridge herself, Shirley Jones. Graham was planning on taking the place and turning it into a music venue called the Filmore East. Around that same time, Dwayne and Greg Allman were struggling to break through. Their first band, the Allman Joys, had kind of petered out, so they tried their luck in LA, but the only positive thing to happen there was Dwayne getting the flu and teaching himself how to play slide guitar with a glass bottle of Coricidin, the medicine he'd been taking for his symptoms. Eventually, they hooked up with guitarist Dickie Betts and bassist Barry Oakley and set out to reinvent 2-guitar rock music. Rather than one rhythm player and one soloist, their new group was going to have 2 lead players. They also had 2 drummers, Butch Trucks providing driving beats, and the jazz-influenced Jimo Johansson. The first 2 albums went nowhere, but their highly improvised live shows started drawing a following. In 1970, they performed over 300 dates, but it was also killing them. They were nursing growing addictions. Their tour manager killed a club owner that refused to pay them. A roadie was shot in the thigh by a police officer for resisting arrest, and in 1971, the entire band and 3 roadies were charged after police found marijuana, PCP, and heroin in their van. The Allman Brothers Band seemed on track to be just another failed effort. By that point, Bill Graham had grown the Fillmore into a major venue. In March, Johnny Winter was booked, and the Allmans managed to get hired as his opening. But the first night, after the Allmans' opening set, half the audience walked out. The Allmans had blown away the crowd so much that most assumed that they were the main event. By the third night, the Allman Brothers were closing. A live album was a no-brainer, and Live at the Fillmore East became the breakthrough they'd been waiting for. It's a testament to their sprawling shows, a double album that consists of only 7 songs, some being jams that take up entire sides. Now, the first side is mainly stock blues, but then come influences from all over. Southern rock, jazz, Latin influences. Fusion wasn't really a term that existed yet, but in hindsight, it really is the best word. After years of false starts, it had taken just a few nights at an old Yiddish theater to finally break through. It wouldn't last. Just months later, Bill Graham announced the Filmore was going to close. But he also announced one last blowout at 105 2nd Avenue, and every band wanted in. The Beach Boys showed up, unloaded their stuff, and announced they'd be playing last. Graham said, well then, better pack up your shit, because I already have my closing band. Graham had handpicked the Allmans for the final curtain, and the band made it count. They poured out everything for the audience. When the doors opened after the final encore, the sun came streaming in. They hadn't realized they'd played straight through the night to 7 o'clock the next morning. It was June 27th, and the Filmore was done. A week later, the Allman Brothers Band at Fillmore East was released. It went gold 4 months later, and 4 days after that, Duane Allman was dead, having wiped out on his Harley trying to avoid a collision. At his funeral, someone slid a joint into his shirt pocket. Someone else added a Coracetin bottle. Duane and the Filmore had built themselves up, had a brief affair, and died on the same timetable. In that brief moment, however, thanks to this album, they became inextricably linked. To this day, you're hard-pressed to find anyone who remembers the Filmore without immediately thinking of the Allmans, or for that matter, anyone who remembers the Allmans without immediately thinking of the Filmore. And I yield.
Well said.
Very well done.
Yeah, the Fillmore East is an old fixture in among a lot of bands. Ozzy Osbourne references it on the Speak of the Devil album.
Yeah, there were in the short time it was open, there were a lot of live albums cut there.
Yes, there were.
And this kind of goes back to what you were saying before when we talked about Kiss, was if a band came to town and you couldn't get tickets or they didn't even come to your town, the only way you were going to really hear these bands was through these live albums. And this one, unlike the Kiss album, really is a live album. Yeah. And it has that live feel to it. I mean, I've always felt like the live and even some of like the later Unplugged albums, I always felt like they separated the studio bands from the real bands.
Yes, agreed.
Because, a lot of acts are out there today that are singing or, God forbid, lip syncing over a music track.
Yes. Ugh.
Not only do I agree with that, but these were I mean, I don't know if you really call them originals or not, but these were basically all originals, because this was usually when you get even a good live album, you're basically just listening to the artist redo, possibly in some ways reinvent things they've done in the studio. This album, there are only 2 songs on here that had been released previously. Everything else was stuff that they were premiering that night.
I mean, think about it. You're out there with 2 lead guitars, 2 drummers. I mean, you are operating without a net.
Absolutely. There's a lot that can go wrong with that much sound coming out on stage.
That is what I feel like. That's what makes I think the live albums from the 70s and maybe some in the 80s, I think were more popular because of that. Because there was a lot more chances being taken, and they sound live. Everything now is so polished and so produced.
Yeah. And today when you see singers singing, you pretty much expect to see the in-ear monitors.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
True.
And before then, they had to have good sound in the house or they didn't fucking hear themselves. I mean,
they had to have a good monitor in front of them.
Exactly.
The big triangular monitors pointed back at the stage. That's about it.
Exactly. I mean, you guys know what that's like. And I mean, it's live acts, like you said, Corey, it seems like back then that was the way to hear a band live, was to get a live album. And now, of course, but then again, concerts used to be $10-$20 tops too.
If that. I mean, back in the 70s, they were a lot less.
Yeah, they were.
But the Allman Brothers, they actually needed a live album. They were a live band.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they were playing these long songs, these long jams, and they could not do that in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. It was not going to happen.
That harkens back to the whole, Grateful Dead, the jam band thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and back to your point about how everything today is so overproduced, it's hard to find. I won't say there's no artists out there doing stuff like this, because I think you have guys like, Fish and other bands out there that are willing to go out and noodle around for hours on end. But most concerts, when you do go see them, everything is, even at the concert, is overproduced. People. Yes, it is. I always chuckle when I go to a concert and you hear like some schmuck in the front row play so and so. It's like, dude, that doesn't work that way. They've got a whole set list with lighting cues that have been carefully laid out with specific timing. There's a guy at the soundboard who is expecting specific notes at specific points in time. There's no room whatsoever in most modern concerts for any kind of flexibility. You can't just start playing a song. It doesn't work like that anymore.
There's a recent U2 concert that's on YouTube, and whoever recorded it from the board also picked up the click track.
Nice.
Oh, God.
So, I mean, they're all keeping, I mean, you've got the technology to keep everybody in time. Why not use it?
Of course.
I mean, it's great, but
of course,
at the same time,
if you got $100,000 of pyrotechnics that are supposed to go off at a specific point in the song, you want to make damn sure they go off at the right point.
or you got a video screen behind you. You've got, lasers going off, whatever. I mean, think about Pink Floyd with their movies going on behind them.
Right.
But they were doing that before we had a lot of this technology, so they had to be tight. I mean, Pink Floyd was not one of those bands that really had a stage presence. You went for the music and for the visuals with them.
Yes.
Well, that's just it. You used to go just for you wanted to hear the music.
Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think there's anything wrong with going to a show for the spectacle.
No, I love spectacle.
It's just that it's limiting in the sense of you couldn't do what the Allman Brothers are doing on this album.
Right, that's very true. No, you couldn't. You didn't go to see Dwayne Allman thrashing around and shrieking.
No, or dancing around like Mick Jagger. Doesn't happen.
Right, no, would not have worked.
I mean, the live vibe is the only place you're going to be able to pull off the noodling. You do that as a studio album, it doesn't work. It only works in a live setting.
That's very true.
Yeah, and these guys, I mean, the noodling, it's a lot of noodling and improvisation, but it is dead on. I mean, it's hard to point to any place where they tried something and you can say, gee, that I see what they were trying, but it didn't quite work. It was, they what an ensemble. I mean, they knew exactly what to do, when to do it.
Brilliant players. Yes. Very intuitive. And I love that when people have the feel for the music. Yeah. It's like you get a lot of technicians in music, but very few people have the feel. And that's a long way.
Know it, too, when you're on stage and you're clicking with everybody else up there. And you just, I can't even describe it to people. I'm like, look, when you're on that stage and a song is just working and everybody is just in concert together, it's euphoric in its own way.
Yeah,
and you can't encapsulate that. And this live album, I think, comes close because you hear all of these guys working perfectly together.
Very,
and
close.
It's not even a machine. That would be the wrong analogy to use. It just works.
It's very organic. In that sense.
That's it.
Agreed. Right. I know we could talk about other stuff, but we kind of went off on enough of a tangent there that I think.
Speaking of live albums,
yes. All right, Scott. Oh.
Well, I'm gonna take us out with another live album, and this is Johnny Cash live at Fulsom Prison. Are we ready?
You may proceed.
Oh, well, is anyone ready? Okay, Johnny the Ass Man Cash at Fulsom Prison. It was released in 1968. Johnny had finally gotten a grip on his drug problems as well as his irritating anal fisting habits, so his career had turned around, but he had had a limited commercial success up to this point. Despite little investment from his label, the album was hit in the U.S., reaching number 1 on the country charts and the top 15 in the national album chart. The lead single, a live version of Folsom Prison Blues, was a top 40 hit. However, this was not his first experience playing for a prison. While never serving hard time himself, Cash had an affinity for the downtrodden and often wondered if he could do a benefit for all the people suffering from anal fistulas. After the release of the single Folsom Prison Blues in 1955, he began receiving letters from inmates around the country asking him to play. Johnny performed his first prison concert at Huntsville State Prison in 1957. After hearing the response from the inmates, he began to think about a live recording at one of the facilities. And Cash recorded other live albums in prisons as well, including at San Quentin in 1969, I don't know how to pronounce this word, in Sweden in 1973, and a concert behind prison walls in the Tennessee State Prison in 1974, which included guests Linda Ronstadt, Roy Clark, and Foster Brooks. And when he first arrived at Folsom, he had some special guests along. He had the Tennessee Three, consisting of Luther Ballkicker Perkins, Marshall Dangler Grant, and W.S. Gums Holland. Anyway, they backed Cash up during the sets, but also on stage was former Sun label mate Carl Perkins, the guitar player that a lot of people know, who opened the show with his song Blue Suede Shoes. The Statler brothers provided backup vocals for Cash and also performed their hits Flowers on the Wall and This Old House. Finally, June Carter Cash joined in on duets of Jackson and Give My Love to Rose. During the live performances, many of the inmates were reluctant to respond too raucously. They feared reprisals from the guards if they cheered too loudly during the songs such as Cocaine Blues or 25 Minutes to Go. During the performance of Dark as a Dungeon, one of the inmates began to laugh, which led to Cash chuckling as well. Johnny casually admonished the man, who responded with, "Oh hell." Johnny's response at the end of the song is the stuff of legend. "I just want to tell you that this show is being recorded for an album released on Columbia Records, so you can't say hell or shit or anything like that." That was Johnny. This album shows how Cash is at once a consummate performer, and honestly, even if you don't like country music, it's got plenty of rock and blues elements that make just about everybody happy. After receiving triple platinum status from the RIAA in 2003, the Library of Congress chose it for addition to the National Recording Registry. The album Live at Fulsom Prison deserves to be in the top 500 greatest albums of all time, and the Man in Black is an icon all on his own, and this album is just a part of his very strong legacy. There you go.
Well done.
Nicely done.
See, it was almost coherent.
Yep.
Sort of an uncomfortable marriage of prison time and anal fistulas there, but other than that,
Yeah.
I had to work in
I guess they go hand in hand.
hand in fist. Hand in fist. Fist and fistula.
But going back,
I put the fist back in fistula. Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
But with live albums, going back to what we just said with the Allman Brothers,
Yeah.
it was the interaction with the audience. This was a live album.
Oh, yeah.
You
Oh, yeah.
you were in that audience, and you
It was
could
very live.
You could almost feel some of the tension in there too when when they're just giving almost like little golf claps. It seems
to the point of between songs, there's these weird moments where the main, I guess it's the main guard or something, picks up the microphone and says, "Prisoner number 8249, you're needed in the commissary."
Right.
Yeah.
And that they left that all in there, I thought was very well done. Just to let you know, yeah, you're in a prison and there's loud announcements and it's loud and there's no solace.
Yeah, it made the overall atmosphere a little uncomfortable, which is perfect for doing a live album in, I think. And Cash was at the top of his game doing that.
Yeah, you mentioned that he sort of always had this soft spot for the downtrodden in society. And one of the takeaways from this album was, after this album came out and became a big hit, he got very vocal about prison reform generally. He testified to Congress. He met with the president about it, felt that we needed to do a better job of, frankly, treating prisoners like human beings, to the point where he would actually go to prisons and sit down and play cards with the inmates just to spend time with them.
Well, that's just it. I mean, this was not his only prison album. There were three others. So, he continued doing that throughout his life, and that's great because he was making a difference.
The one story that kind of jumped out from that was this story about Glenn Shirley, who he mentions. You can hear Cash talk about Glenn Shirley during in the course of the album. The last song on the album is called Greystone Chapel. It was written by Glenn Shirley, who was an inmate at Fulsom. And it was all about this guy's personal journey of finding faith in the chapel at Folsom Prison. Cash was really moved by it, so much so that he sort of committed himself to learning the song and doing it when they recorded this. Flash forward to 1971, and Cash actually convinced then Governor Ronald Reagan to free Glenn Shirley, takes Shirley out on the road as a songwriter and performer. Shirley actually started getting a little bit of attention from the public because Cash thought he was very talented and he was sort of promoting Shirley everywhere he went. But unfortunately, it's sort of one of these tragic stories of people that have spent so long on the inside, they don't know how to adjust to life on the outside. Shirley's behavior just got sort of increasingly erratic. His son actually said that in the first year he was out, his father wrecked 7 cars because he didn't know how to drive. And he started taking more and more drugs. And 7 years after Cash had got him relief, Shirley shot himself in the head and committed suicide. And Johnny actually reached into his pocket and paid for the funeral.
That was Johnny Cash, yeah.
Johnny was just a good soul. Yeah, I mean, he had his rough days and time, but I mean, this was a guy that always wanted to sing gospel.
Yeah, and did.
At
various points, yes.
I thought that the music choices, the songs he chose, were very interesting to be played in the prison. And just from side one, of course, you've got your Fulsom prison blues, but Dark as the Dungeon is being a miner in a coal mine is very much, it's not a far leap to point that to being
the
in
analogies right
to
there.
a prison cell. I mean, it's dark as a dungeon and damp as the dew, where danger is double and pleasures are few, where the rain never fails and the sun never shines. And then I still miss someone. And I mean, it is kind of a leap, but it's, I wonder if she's sorry for leaving what we'd begun. There's someone for me somewhere, and I still miss someone. So all these people whose relationships or marriages all just dissolved because they were incarcerated. Cocaine blues, a murder in the Fulsom pen. He changed the lyric from the original San Quentin. 25 minutes to go, which is very gallows humor, of the person going to the actual gallows.
There was one, The Wall, where it's all about basically a prisoner who they warned him over and over that they'd be shot if they got caught trying to climb the wall. And so one prisoner literally flung himself at the wall because he was just ready to end it.
And then Long Black Veil, an innocent man on death row, but he's taking his actual alibi that would get him off of the murder to the grave with him. Because at the time of the murder, he was having an affair with his best friend's wife.
And I was trying to think of that song. I was trying to think of where I heard it before. Last season, we talked about Music from Big Pink by the band. They did that. They did that. Long Black Veil is on that album too.
No shit.
And I made a list. I don't know if we want to keep this or not, of other prison performances. In October of '69, Country Joe and the Fish, members from Country Joe and the Fish and the Sons of the Champlain performed on a flatbed in the compound of the San Quentin prison.
Nice.
In December of '88, Carlos Santana played in the recreation yard of San Quentin.
Sweet.
In May of 2003, Metallica played in San Quentin.
Of course they did.
Going back to Thanksgiving of 1972, B.B. King at the Sing Sing prison. The Sex Pistols in '76 played at the Chelmsford Top Security Prison. And in '71, The Dead played the Terminal Island Correctional Facility.
Yeah.
So bands actually playing in prisons. I think I did read that Frank Sinatra did want to do this. So he actually had the idea to do this first. But I think Johnny is, as far as like known artists that performed in a prison, that would be him. I couldn't find any other references.
This is. I think I saw a lot of those references myself when I was prepping for the show, but honestly, I didn't know about any of them. When I think, if somebody says famous album recorded in a prison, this is the first and only album that comes to mind for me.
Yes. Yeah.
It is it leaps to the forefront of my mind. Yeah, everything else is like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, if Frank Sinatra had recorded an album, it would have been like the Codpiece live at the prison. Yeah, the 12 Psychic Oboists live at Folsom Prison, which would have been probably more popular, but as a result, we
prison
didn't get
overcrowding.
That. I know, right?
12 oboists in one goddamn
You
cell.
wouldn't have gotten the oboists in there, yeah. Because then you also would have still needed the big band to come in there with them on top of the oboists.
Well, yeah.
And there's just not that kind of room.
It was hard for Frank to tour with that band.
Yeah, I've got nothing more.
Me either.
All right, in that case, Scott, I think you are adjourning.
No.
Sorry, Cory is adjourning. That's right.
I will be adjourning.
Confused.
Where are you, Dave?
And we will be back.
Hey everybody, this is Dave, and I just want to take a quick minute to thank you all for listening. We have a lot of fun making this show for you, and we hope you're enjoying what you hear. And if you are enjoying the show, why not take a minute to subscribe? All you have to do is just search for Musical Shenanigans on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them, like iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple, Spotify. Once you find us, you just tap that little subscribe button. You never ever have to worry about missing an episode again. It'll be right there on your phone when it comes out. Also, we'd love it if you tell your friends about us. In fact, if you're with a friend right now, next time they get up to leave the room, you know what, just grab their phone and subscribe them as well. I'm sure they'll thank you for it. And as always, we always love your feedback. You can always drop us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or you can tweet at us at @m_shenanigan. Please let us know what you think. We'd love to hear it. All right, that's enough shameless plugging. Again, thank you for listening, and now back to the show.
All right, so 2 live albums. This is a true slugfest.
It was a 2 live crew.
It was, yeah. I actually deliberated this for a very long time because I love the Johnny Cash album. This is one of those that I feel like it is a perfect encapsulation of when Johnny was really just getting it together, nailing down songs, and the storytelling he does and his execution. The Allman Brothers, on the other hand, this is the dual guitar sound Eagles picked up on, the dual drummers the Dead were already doing, but this is the heart of where Southern rock came from. I think you look at other bands, Leonard Skinner, Free, any of those others, Marshall Tucker Band, they're all going to point back to the Allman Brothers. And this performance and everything that even we discussed with the whole band just clicking with these really long tracks and these long jams that just could have easily at any moment fallen apart. I have to go with the Allman Brothers.
I think that's, not just because I was arguing on their behalf, but I think that's the right choice, honestly.
Okay. Wow,
but this is tough. This is, once again, we are in alignment with Rolling Stone's list. However, Rolling Stone had this as a close call too, because they had the Allman Brothers at 105 and Johnny Cash at 164. So there were only 59 slots separating these 2 albums.
In 2003 and in 2012, Johnny Cash was at number 88. I did not look up where at Filmore East was on those, or if it was even included. But the Johnny Cash did drop from 88 to 164. And I think that much like in other contests that we have, this Johnny Cash album against somebody else could have easily taken the win. But,
absolutely. I think you could say that. When I was sort of pondering the Sparks versus Nas debate,
yeah,
if Sparks had been against somebody different, I could have easily voted for them. But that Nas album was just so good.
Exactly. And that's how I felt about the Allman Brothers. I had a hard time because I really like both of these albums too.
Well, now the ghost of Johnny Cash is going to come fist you, Cory.
Well, there are worse things. Not many, but there are worse things.
He'd be like, "Okay, bend over."
Okay, you ready
cook
for
something special?
You ready for the next show's
25
albums?
to go.
You ready for the next list?
Oh yeah, sure. Hit us.
Okay. In the next show, in round 1, it will be Pixies with Doolittle.
Nice.
Going against Big Star with Third Sister Lovers.
Wow.
In round 2 is Robin, Robyn, with the album Body Talk.
Fuck's that?
Swedish pop star. Yes, I had to look it up. I did not know that.
You might, Scott, you may actually like her because she's a little bit sort of like techno poppy. I've heard some of it. It's not bad.
Sweet.
And Robin will be taking on Sly and the Family Stone. Stand.
Nice.
Oh, shit. Well, it's not bad, but it's not that good.
So that is where we will be next show.
There's a sword fight for you, kids.
That is, yeah. Well,
you can just smack your meat sticks together in the back aisle of the 7-Eleven.
Why not the Arby's?
You could take it to the Arby manager's desk if you'd like.
All right. Hey, be sure to comment and follow us on Twitter, subscribe, review us. Anything?
Yes, follow us on Twitter at _shenanigan.
Send us nude
insult
nude
us.
Pictures are always welcome. That's a terrible thing to say, probably.
the magic of editing.
Motherfucker.
And you don't remember. That's the best part. You don't even remember when I've cut shit.
Yeah, fuck you.
Oh, I don't. I can tell you for sure I don't. Because honestly, when I listen to these shows when they come out, I'll start laughing all over again because I'm like, I have no recollection of any of us saying that. But
Yeah, no, me too. I don't remember jack shit from these. It's interesting that we talk so much about it, and then you come back and hear it, and it's like, wow, that's anyway.
Okay, thank you all again for
thank you.
Yep, for your patronage.
Oh, who is that? Who is the shout out to the listener, Cory, in that country? Was it that one country?
Weren't we gonna at least thank the one listener in Germany?
Two.
There's
The
two
word
in
of mouth
Germany.
is spreading. I just checked yesterday. We actually have 2 separate downloads in Germany now.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
So that
Alright.
dude phoned a friend apparently.
Thank you.
Thank
Pizza.
you. And everybody else out there, phone a friend.
Hans.
One friend. Just one.
Tell a friend.
Dankeschön, Dieter.
You can slap your meat sticks together.
All right, folks. Thank you again. And we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Try to be nice. Try to be nice to each other, kids.
That's nice of you.
Thank you. Fucking asswipes.
And I'll keep that. Yeah, which is perfect. All right, I'm stopping.
Wait, am I stopping? Okay.